in what ways, either personally or through your work with the organization, have you seen mental health and substance abuse intersect? What's the relationship? Because it's a more complex one than it's made out to be, I guess. So I'm wondering what, in your personal experience and from what you've seen, has been the relationship between those two issues.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there was a survey done of collegiate recovery alumni maybe a few years ago. And in that survey, it was something really significantly high, maybe around 90%. I can find the graphic of, students who are in recovery from addiction that went through these programs, had co-occurring disorders. So yeah, that intersection is so common. Anytime I talk to folks in the field, students or staff or other stakeholders who are identifying as in recovery from addiction, almost always there's, something along the lines of, either trauma, or maybe they're in recovery from an eating disorder, or, they've had, been diagnosed with depression or anxiety, or, all sorts of different things. So yeah, that intersection is like very much present. And in terms of the kind of work, I think, different programs kind of explore that in different ways. There's the area of just the support, like the programs aren't just generally supporting the student in terms of, okay, we're going to just focus on recovery from addiction. They're going to, help the student with academics, with, other issues that they might be dealing with physically or mentally or emotionally. So the programs kind of handle it in different ways. Some are so large they have like full tracks for that, and they're programming. Like a lot of them are doing a lot this week and this month. With mental health awareness being such a big focus. So yeah, the intersection is really evident in a lot of ways.
Mhm. How would you say the college environment is more has more risks for people who are susceptible to these things?
Yeah.
Would you say it's a lack of structure, or what would you say that's making it more dangerous for people who are susceptible to substance abuse and mental health issues to go into
Yeah.
the environment?
Yeah, it's like a perfect storm in a lot of ways because, we all typically have gone from a very structured, supportive environment growing up where, 8 a.m. every weekday, like we're waking up in our family's home, and more than likely like going to school and then getting done around 3, and maybe there's some extracurriculars, and then all of a sudden you get thrown into this new environment, an environment which is like brand new, and you don't have all that structure. You have all these different questions and stresses that are kind of factoring in. And then it's also this environment where everything you need is like in this bubble, right? And so if you don't feel like a part of that bubble, there's all sorts of things that can kind of um, just happen mentally. I mean, I remember that. I got into recovery in high school, and I went down to Washington D.C. for school, and I had a good program, but when you don't feel like you fit in, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden anxiety shoots up, depression shoots up, and you're looking for ways to alleviate those kind of feelings. And so, yeah, I think that's why people turn to all sorts of different outlets for that, some healthier than others. But yeah, I think it's a combination of like the new environment, just the age that we're all at. Like we're going down to school or wherever at age 18, and if the brain's not really fully developing till 25, there's just this kind of, yeah, perfect storm, for lack of a better term, of all those things kind of coming together, and then all these new things are available too. Like it might be the first time some students are seeing like parties and offer different substances, and feel the pressure to do that to fit in, or to take Adderall in order to get through final exams, or to take Xanax to deal with anxiety. All those different um, opportunities, I guess, become available, and might seem a little bit more appealing than they did prior to that.
So I think one of the benefits then, as you described, would be that these recovery programs are a sense of community for people
Yeah,
who don't necessarily feel like they fit into that college community. It's a place they can go where they feel like they fit in.
yeah.
In addition to that, what are some other strategies the recovery programs employ in order to try and ward off those risks?
Mm. Yeah, I think what they again, it's probably like it depends school by school, and it's kind of like a multifaceted approach. I think what they'll definitely try and do is provide like the wraparound support for each student, so that they're kind of like, it's not treatment, but they're like treating the whole student in a sense, like that kind of like holistic type of lens of, making sure the student is supported in all sorts of different ways. And I think higher education is doing better with that. So making sure that, good nutrition and exercise and good study habits and coping skills, and for the students in recovery from addiction in these programs, that they have solid routines and family support or a good friend group. And yeah, that community aspect is big. And then all sorts of additional social outlets or academic support and things like that. So I think that all kind of combines into their strategy, like you mentioned, into supporting each student individually, which then kind of is, supporting like the whole community of students that they have. And that's kind of the, best strategy, like you said, against all those risks.
Mhm. So this question is more about the work that you do,
Mm.
but the ARHE, the ARHE, right?
Yeah,
That,
yeah,
right,
yeah. No, it's a tongue twister. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That, as I understand it, it's an umbrella organization that manages a bunch of and helps to start new collegiate recovery programs across different universities and colleges, right?
Yeah, so yeah, professional membership association. So they're all member schools. So we don't kind of run the programs; they're all independent. But yeah, we're kind of the association that represents them and kind of advocates on their behalf, and works to develop more programs at schools across the country and even kind of globally now. So yeah, same kind
Uh,
of deal. Yeah.
is our collegiate recovery programs gaining traction in terms of their influence across college campuses? Would you say?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was so our first meeting of students when I was a freshman at George Washington University was February of 2012, so just over 8 years ago. And there was about 14 schools that had these services at the time, and now we're almost at 150 member schools for our association, and then probably about 200 schools plus total that have some form of recovery support service on campus. So it's grown leaps and bounds, and the wild thing is that it's still kind of scratching the surface.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Finally, I just wanted to ask, we've been interviewing different experts about this, and one of the questions that we wanted to ask all of them is relating to their field, particular field, is just how would you broadly define addiction or mental health?
Oof, that one's hard. Um, Broadly define it. Yeah. With addiction, I mean, it's tough because it's if you're looking at like kind of incorporating like process addictions too, or if you're really just talking about like substance use disorder is kind of like the term that gets uh looked at more regularly and has kind of like a clinical feel to it. It's tough. I don't know if I have like a real answer. I guess it would be some combination of pointing out that we recognize it as a disease, as a like a medical condition. And so I think we still are fighting that the stigma that it's like a choice, so it would have kind of that component to it, that it progresses, and that it's potentially fatal unless treated, so it's not something that will uh, generally just kind of resolve itself. There needs to be identification that it's there, and then as far as like a diagnosis in some cases, and then treatment, and then ongoing recovery support, which is what different services like collegiate recovery programs do.